Hello, and welcome to Tech Connects, Dice's podcast where we dig into the topics on tech hiring, recruiting, and careers that matter to you. I'm your host, Nick Kolakowski. I'm going to talk to great guests every month about the current state of the tech careers world, including the tech job market, the hottest tech skills, what companies are doing to attract and retain tech pros in a historically tight market, and much more. Our next guest is Steve Ramey, who's CEO of IronGate Cybersecurity, a digital forensics and incident response company. I wanted to talk to Steve because he has some unique insights into the current cybersecurity market, including ways to address the current cybersecurity job gaps and train the next generation of cybersecurity pros. So, with that, let's just jump on in. So, Steve, first, thanks for being on the show. As I was just saying before I hit the record button just now, it's always great to have a cybersecurity expert on just because we do so much cybersecurity coverage, but it's great to have a bona fide cybersecurity empire builder and company runner kind of come in and talk about everything related to this extraordinarily complex field. So, yeah, thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me, Nick. It's certainly an understatement for a complex field.
Yeah, I'm curious. So, I mean, at IronGate, which is the company you run, sort of what I don't want to say what keeps you up at night because that has sort of a negative connotation. But what's sort of driving you at the moment? Like, what do you find passionate? What's driving you in terms of cybersecurity? Like, what's kind of the cutting edge thing you're working on right now?
Yeah, I mean, at the core of our company, we're here to help. There's, millions of cyber attacks that are occurring, and a lot of these businesses aren't prepared for it. Whether they have cyber insurance or not, they're just not prepared for it. They don't know enough about security. They don't know enough about how to respond. And then in the case of ransomware and extortion, they don't know enough about how to have those conversations. What I've been focused on the last 7 or 8 years or so has really been helping these businesses understand the intricacies of cyber attacks, how to investigate, the importance of having legal involved while we're investigating to help with that downstream guidance based on our investigative findings. And then most importantly, getting back to that complex topic, is actually sharing information about cybersecurity, about security procedures back to the victims so that they walk away understanding that it's not just a snapshot. They have to take action. They have to be able to deliver on security just as they deliver on their business operations. So the core of IronGate really is here to help. We want to, expand on that knowledge, expand on that sentiment of cybersecurity for everyone. It's affordable. There's a lot of expertise out there to tap into. We just have to get out there and spread the word. And then the second piece of this is there's a talent shortage, right? Every day a new job opens up. Every day we have one less person in the field. And it's not just about burnout. It's very overwhelming to be in cybersecurity, but it's also about the talent that comes in up through the ranks. And so we're working on a number of initiatives internally here, both from an automation to be able to do more with less, as well as the ability to address the I don't want to say the talent gap, but really emphasize that we can bring in folks inside the cybersecurity umbrella. We can have them, pivot from their career paths in a certain technical discipline, or introduce individuals outside of the technical discipline into the technical discipline to help with that. I've seen, very successful individuals pivot from project management into incident response, vice versa. If we look at the legal field, that's ripe with a lot of very versatile skill set as we think about data privacy, as we think about legal advisement, as we think about claims and insurance. So our skill sets are very transferable. It's just making sure that the time and need for that position is accommodating to that individual, their skill set, and the adaptability thereof.
Yeah, that makes total sense. One thing that pops up again and again, and whenever the feds issue a report or some research group issues a report, it's stunning the number of cybersecurity related job openings that seem perpetually unfulfilled, that these companies have these openings. Sometimes it seems like for months or years, and they still sort of sit there, and companies, they're scrambling to get the right cybersecurity talent to kind of plug these gaps. that gap stands at, I don't have the figures in front of me, but certainly hundreds of thousands of open postings every time I take a look online, I feel like. And I'm just wondering, even with kind of the reskilling and the retooling, all these efforts that you and other companies are doing, do you think the gap can be closed? Because it seems so insurmountable from the outside, but there must be, I mean, especially with all this diligent work that you and others are doing, there must be a way to conceivably close it within a certain time frame, I would think. I mean, it's not as hopeless as it might seem at first glance.
I don't want to be the bearer of doubt here, but yes, I think at some point we can certainly close the gap, right? But we are facing an uphill battle. We have the precipice of change from technology. We have the introduction of artificial intelligence into everyday use. We have we're on the foresight of quantum computing, and that's going to introduce its own challenges once that's mainstream adopted. There's the looming adoption of blockchain technology. And then there's this whole world of operational technology that we haven't even began to explore, even though it's a niche into itself. So even as we bring in new talent and we grow that talent within our ecosystem, there is a pioneer out there from a technology standpoint about to introduce a brand new technology. And that pioneering of new technology is going to create a brand new discipline of, of business operations, adoption, and then security. And that security with that business adoption, generating revenue, generating intelligence, that will then intrigue the bad guys to come in and try to steal and try to wreak havoc. So that in and of itself is a perpetual ecosystem for us in our roles. We're established investigators in IT networks. Now we're looking at, from a legal compliance standpoint, large language models, the adoption, how do we detect bias? How do we poison the well so we get bad things that come out there? How do we just take these LLMs and use them for malicious gain? So that's what we're battling right now. Quantum computing, as we understand security today, we're trying to pivot to say, hey, everything we're doing, we need to quantum proof it. Quantum hasn't even hit the market in mass scale, let alone, adopted for business use. But we're already thinking, how do we pivot these algorithms, these encryption models, so that they become quantum proof? So when something does hit the market mass scale, it's backwards compatible. So there's a huge evolution of technology moving at a very fast pace that is creating that hurdle for us to address that skills gap. But there are a lot of things we can do today, right? We as a community have to come together. We have to get better at pronouncing and amplifying the voice of cybersecurity, getting that educational awareness out so that individuals walk away smarter about cybersecurity and have a clearer path to get into cybersecurity. I advise several, graduates directly, informally, and their number one question is, I have a degree, I've applied to 50 companies, but nobody's called me. I said, see all these job postings out there. How do I get a job? And it's tough, right? It's very tough. People need to have, transferable skill sets. They need to have experience coming in, because cybersecurity, it's not just a entry level. Well, certain roles aren't just entry level, right? You need to have that level of experience, sophistication, understand how it can be abused, how it can be applied within that organization to secure. It's hard to grab that experience straight from university. But the good news is there are ways. You can get into groups. You can get into online studies. There's a lot of free content out there to bolster your skills, to show your leadership ability to take on a challenge in the unknown, to improve your skill set. So when you submit your resume, you have that on your resume itself that they can detect. The other challenge too, with entry level specifically, their ability to document how they're a leader, what they do when they do it, not necessarily technology related, just what they do outside of school. Being verbose, using strong words, because a lot of those resumes are scanned by artificial intelligence algorithms now that try to sift out for the applicant pool to get the best candidates to those recruiters. So playing that game would also allow those individuals to get identified as well. And then to your earlier point about all these positions, some organizations just leave positions open. They want to collect those resumes, so they have a resume pool for when they need to actually hire. They can just go straight to their pool, find those candidates, and then move forward with them. But that could be a month wait. It could be a 3-month wait before you get, those phone calls.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too, I mean, people who are just entering the workforce, even if they don't necessarily know those cybersecurity tools and so on, I imagine that there's soft skills, obviously, the empathy and communication and all the rest of that, but then also basic problem solving skills. And it's something you can demonstrate. People problem solve every day. And I imagine if you're going into an interview, you can treat that as a transferable skill and say, I might not have a cybersecurity background, but I overcame all these challenges using these techniques. And this shows that, I can apply my rational brain to overcoming pretty much anything. I mean, I imagine that would help. I mean, I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the biggest things we look for. We actually fun story here. So we had a couple of positions we recently filled, and during the interview process, one of our directors found that some of the candidates were Googling answers during the call, because they're all video calls now, right? We can't see what their hands are doing or what's on their screen, what they're looking at. And so he picked up on this. The next candidate, next interview, he says, "I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to Google the answer. I want to know what you know and what you don't know. It's not going to, it's just going to help me understand exactly your point, that critical troubleshooting." So not only did the candidate, show his limits, but he actually raises his hands into the screen view to 5-10 minutes. He stayed just like this so that we could see his hands, and we're like, "Oh, you're going to get hired because this is the best, ethical response to that question." So, troubleshooting absolutely is number one, and how these candidates can deal with on the fly troubleshooting is a critical success indicator for some of these challenging roles we have.
One thing I want to loop back to really quickly, it really intrigued me what you were saying about quantum, because it's so experimental now that you don't really think about it in mainstream context. But one of the fears that you read about in relation to quantum computing is that it's going to render sort of the current paradigm of encryption and passwords and so on completely obsolete. If these systems can potentially guess every single combination at once, it's going to crack everything instantly. Hence all the investment by nation states and quantum computing and so on. How do you, I mean, and granted, this is still extraordinarily early days on that, but I mean, how are people thinking about quantum proofing things? Is it a matter of just trying to develop an algorithm that somehow, I don't even know. I have such a hard time wrapping my head around quantum in general that I just am interested in any insights you have there.
You've nailed it, right? There's a lot of think tanks out there. NIST is one of them. I believe DARPA has a hand in it too, from a U.S. perspective. They have a call for papers, right? They have contests for the public to submit their own interpretation of something that could be quantum proof. They have these contests that come in, and then they put those algorithms, those papers through the ringer to see what actually is, what's not. And I believe. I know I'm on record here, and I know I'm going to misspeak.
No, fine.
Take my word with a grain of salt here, but I'm pretty sure they did find an algorithm or two that is quantum proof, or at least in the direction thereof, so that we are making advancements towards quantum proof. What that means is anything from that algorithm forward is quantum proof, right? Retroactively applying that to today's system is going to be absolutely difficult. So think firewalls, right? Think of a very large multinational corporation, all the firewalls they have across their network. Having to physically remove those firewalls to replace with brand new quantum proof firewalls, right? Think about all the encryption, all the databases that we have around, all the data that we have sitting on these servers everywhere else that we've already encrypted, but then has to get re-encrypted with quantum. So that in and of itself, not only just developing the quantum proof algorithms and then putting that into effect going forward, but then it's retroactively looking at what is actually important that we don't want broken. Let's now go and bring that up to date as well.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. It feels also that, I mean, that's such a bare metal, like kind of like a code level problem versus some of these other things. Like, for example, I was talking to a developer yesterday who was saying that the cybersecurity training he had just gone through involved basically distrusting any single phone call they might get from the CEO or some high ranking executive telling them to like send account information, because now obviously people are using deepfake technology to mimic voices and even video calls and so on. And for sort of cybersecurity issues like that that are emerging, it almost seems that the ideal solution is having the cybersecurity expert train everyone in the organization to not be socially engineered, hopefully. So it seems like that some of these other kind of cutting edge tech issues are maybe solved by just kind of following good cybersecurity protocol versus like having to completely re-engineer your system. That's interesting about quantum. I just hadn't thought about that at all.
Yeah.
That entire encryption thing is going to be ripped up.
Yeah, at some point we're all just going to go back to the old school childhood secret handshakes.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean that's carrier pigeons. I mean there are some methods that are relatively foolproof. Also, because we were talking about people who are just wanting to break into cybersecurity for the first time, and there are all these emerging disciplines. I mean, not quite at the quantum level of things, but certainly new disciplines are emerging. Older cybersecurity disciplines are evolving thanks to AI and things like that. And as we were saying before the call, I mean, a significant portion of the people listening to this program and who read Dice's stuff tend to be on younger technology professionals or aspiring technology professionals. How do they decide, do you think, how do they find a discipline that interests them in a field that's as complicated as cybersecurity? I mean, like what's the best way, do you think, for people to kind of zero in on an aspect of this industry that would interest them that they can pursue? I mean, is there any, or is it just a gut feeling? I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's one question I usually offer to graduates. What's your degree in? Is it something specific like cybersecurity engineering, or is it more of a general cybersecurity degree? Most often, those that are having trouble finding a job, it's a general degree. And that general degree, it gets them exposure across the ecosystem, but doesn't necessarily give them a specific skill that's transferable from graduate to entry level. And that becomes a challenge. The real takeaway is looking at that spectrum: proactive, managed, reactive, figuring out where they want to sit, and then going after that specific job. So pen testing. Everybody loves the idea, elusiveness of hacking, right? I want to find the next vulnerability. I want to, break into systems. I want to be a security researcher and gather bug bounties. Whatever that passion is, wherever that lies. For you to get into pen testing, you have to know a lot of different technologies intimately well. Not only that, but you have to know the right tools. And it gets all the way down to the versions, the firmware versions, the patch levels, and everything in between that you can get tripped up on. And so for you to want to be a pen tester, hey, great, go for that passion. Now, how are you going to do it? You can buy some hardware, you can set some stuff up in your home office, in your home lab, and try to hack into those systems. That sounds boring. There's actually sites out there, Hack the Box being one of them, that sets up these VMs, on-demand VMs for free. Anybody can go and create an account and start banging away on those systems to really learn the subtleties of that profession, both from a security research standpoint, as well as, a malicious, nefarious perspective. But taking that initiative, saying, I want to do this in the cybersecurity world, these are the resources available to me, I'm going to pursue them, and then show that to your potential employer. That shows that initiative, that a drive to not just turn a general degree and graduate with it, but then also take a narrow focus to build that specific skill set.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I actually have a friend who's a pen tester for a pretty major tech company, and he likes to joke because he gets asked that question all the time, like, how can I break into this? This job is so cool. And what he says is all you need is a clipboard, because a big part of his job is seeing whether like the data centers for this corporation are truly hardened or not. If you walk in with a clipboard and a vest on, like, unfortunately, sometimes you can make your way all the way to the cages or whatever before somebody realizes that you're not supposed to be there or whatever. Um, but definitely, yeah, no, and it's an exciting time, I feel, to break into the field, just because there's all this cool evolving technology, and then as we were talking about before, there's all these sort of significant gaps in like the companies are just on the hunt for cybersecurity talent, and it does make me wonder too, since it's such a huge industry. Where do you see the most need, like talent wise? I mean, what are companies and organizations particularly hungry for when it comes to cybersecurity talent and specializations?
Honestly, it's all across the board. It depends on that organization and their maturity. Some really want SOC analysts. They have a global coverage. They need that tiered model, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, to fulfill. And it's a feeder program, right? You enter in as a level 1 analyst. You're following the playbooks. You're escalating those alerts. You get all the way up to tier 3, tier 4, you're starting to write those playbooks. You're getting the unknowns, and you have to go and decipher it and then build that cadence for them. There's other companies that are just now automating their identity and access management. And so they have a big influx of individuals that know the process, know how to implement, write these rules to help organize, a 50,000 person Active Directory, so that it can be automated from a management standpoint. And then as new individuals come in, it's point and click from HR acceptance all the way through, termination and separation. So IAM is another hot area. There's from a procedure standpoint, right? You have your governance. That's a huge area as well. Many organizations have some type of policy procedures, but they may not have it updated, maybe too voluminous for that to occur. So there's others individuals there. Not to mention you have these LLMs that are coming to play and that are going to take a lot of that documentation and help us modify it and keep it up to date a lot better. And then, there's also the third-party risk management. We see a lot of activity in that area because of a lot of these cyber attacks. The TPRM programs are starting to be bolstered because there's more scrutiny on security for your partner, your business partners. It's not just enough to say, yes, we practice good security, but now organizations are actually demanding you need to have EDR technology, you need to have password reuse, you need to implement MFA everywhere in the organization, you have to use password managers. So we're starting to see these contracts that have very specific language to security for third parties to even do business with and connect into their system and manage that data. So really, it's really going to depend on the company and those types of roles that are coming into play. We know there's it's not as pronounced, but there's a lot of blockchain research that's occurring. There's a lot of security vulnerabilities that are occurring there. Investigating the bad guys, identifying them, tracing the money into these mixers, these tumblers, identifying who's managing the mixers and something. That's basically where they wash the money, they wash the Bitcoin. So you transfer your Bitcoin to this service. The service then cleanses it and hands you back clean Bitcoin, untraceable, so to speak. So those tumblers, they do exist. One just got taken down a few weeks ago. And it's pretty lucrative investigative field. So the blockchain has its own challenges. One good avenue to break into cybersecurity is to actually look at the federal government. When you see the skill sets there, they're actually going to train you. And so you come in, if you qualify for one of their positions, you come in, you get trained in, and you're going after, some of the cutting edge cyber threat actors. There, you're going after nation states. You're going after a lot of the cyber crime that deals with ransomware and other threats on the dark web. And they're going to teach you. And we have professionals that have spent 20, 25 years at DHS that are now coming into the workforce. They've enjoyed their work a lot. And now their skills are easily transferable into the private sector because of all similar work they've been doing. What they've done en masse for the U.S., they get to now do for the private sector. And that's a huge undertaking. They put their time in. They're able to get trained up. They know everything we know. It's all the same. It's all, just who we're going after are two different things.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating about the blockchain too, because there's been so much talk about smart contracting and with cryptocurrency and how, the ledger is supposedly, but the idea that there's, tumblers out there that can launder Bitcoin and kind of, I'd have to do some research after this because I'm unfamiliar with it. But I'd never heard of that before. And that's fascinating that you can even, something that like the blockchain can be obfuscated, I guess, or laundered. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating.
Yeah, good technology. It always falls into the bad guys' hands, and they figure out how to make it even worse. But it's tough, right? Because the biggest thing with ransomware threat actors specifically is the law enforcement entities. They watch the money, and the blockchain is a simple way to watch money move. You can see it go from one wallet to the second to the third. Let me qualify that. It's easy to watch it on certain chains, like Bitcoin's most popular. It's easy to watch it flow. But then for the law enforcement to take the bad guys down, they wait for the cryptocurrency to be converted to fiat. Fiat's the actual tangible money for that locale. And once it hits those accounts, they then trace how that money actually moves. And most of the time it's through money mules. So the money gets entered into a central account, then divvied up into various checking accounts with ATMs. Those ATMs are handed to those low-level messengers. They're instructed to take out 7,000, 10,000, 5,000, whatever that amount is, and then they move that money to the actual house where they cleanse it and count it. The law enforcement will actually watch that process, and so when they build up that case, they work with their interagencies, and that's when they perform those large things. Because following the money will actually lead you to the bad guys, and you'll see how the network actually blossoms out from there.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's fascinating. Oh, cool. From a company perspective, I'm kind of flipping it around slightly. I mean, given the rise of all these threats and how crazy things are getting with ransomware and everything like that, I mean, how can companies boost their cyber defenses? I mean, is it a matter of just pour more money in cybersecurity experts at it, or what do they do? Because I mean, I also know there's sort of a low level panic that develops sometimes when you talk to senior executives and they sort of realize that today might be the day that their whole system is locked down by some nefarious actor out there.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take a lot to bolster your cybersecurity, right? You don't need to go out and spend millions to protect your networks. Really, it's the basics, right? When you think about your house, locking your front door, shutting your garage at night, making sure your car is locked, all the same principles apply to our computer networks. Making correct decisions. Don't just think it won't happen to me and then go and click that attachment in that weird email. We really have to look at the computer as if we're walking outside. So really taking that, that simplistic approach of I don't really trust things. Let me question things. Having, that human touch point. So if you do get an email, making that phone call to the person from a trusted phone number saying, hey, did you just send this to me? I wasn't expecting an attachment from you. And having that human conversation really go a long way. Now, a second piece is if you are that concerned about security, making incorrect choices, give us a call. Give IronGate a call. There's several other, IR companies out there that will help you understand what you should be doing at a very basic level for good cyber hygiene. And then once you have that mastered, you can then take that next step into, okay, let's actually plan out a roadmap. Let's bring in a security advisor. Let's have them tie security roadmap to our business growth so that as our business grows, our security spend, our security technology grows with it, and we won't have any concerns as we grow as a business. Other simple things like having cyber insurance, absolutely critical. It's not just cyber insurance is not just a risk, a financial risk transfer mechanism. The insurance companies have actually taken a proactive effort to build an ecosystem of vendors and suppliers within that ecosystem. So once you buy into their policy, you get access to a very deep expertise across technology, across legal, PR, notification, call centers. Whatever might happen on a computer or with computer en masse, you have access to that through your cyber insurance policy. So that alleviates a lot of concern. We work for both, from cyber attack perspective, we work for both insureds and non-insureds. And the non-insureds sometimes are very cost conscious about our services, especially if they have ransomware and they have to go and pay a ransom. Those ransoms can be millions of dollars, some of which many small businesses don't have on hand. Your cyber policy, that is an umbrella. It gets you access to us. A lot of the times our fees are covered under those policies from an investigative standpoint. And same with other ancillary costs as part of the investigation, like recovering those systems, rebuilding those systems. So having a cyber policy is absolutely critical in my mind nowadays with how fast these attacks can occur. And then simple EDR technology, endpoint detection and response technology, that will stop a very high percentage of attacks from even getting farther into your network. As soon as something bad touches your disk or your computer, that EDR will detect it and stop it, which then gives you comfort that there's somebody looking over your shoulder in case you end up, tripping and double clicking that mouse on that attachment.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that's it, folks. I love talking to Steve because of his ability to break down something as complex as the current cybersecurity landscape. Here are some takeaways from our discussion that could help with your own thinking. First, businesses are facing a growing number of cyber attacks, but many aren't prepared. They need expertise to respond to these threats, which means allocating a long-term budget and commitment to bulking up cyber defenses. Cybersecurity is an ongoing process, not a one-time fix, and businesses need to prioritize it to stay secure. Second, Individuals with transferable skills and a willingness to learn can break into cybersecurity careers. There are online courses, communities, and free training platforms that help you gain the necessary skills. Highlighting leadership qualities and initiative on your resume will also help you stand out to potential employers. Third, the future of cybersecurity is uncertain. Emerging technologies like quantum computing will create new security challenges in years ahead. The industry is working on solutions, but continuous learning and adaptation will be essential for cybersecurity professionals. We covered a whole lot of other topics during the episode, of course, so give it a re-listen if there was something you missed. We'll see you next time. And remember, Dice is your best resource to find the tech talent you need to fill your open roles. And for tech pros, the best place to grow your tech career.